Hello, students. Welcome to Divine Public School. I hope you all are fine. Before I proceed with my video lecture, I want your assurance that together we will fight COVID 19. In case of any doubts related to COVID 19, you are one call away. Dial the helpline number 1075, which is toll free to fight against Corona. Dear students, today I am going to teach you chapter 2, Lost Spring, part 2nd of class 12 from the textbook Flamingo, subject English Core, and code of English Core is 301. Board CBSE, Central Board of Secondary Education. Dear students, before I start with my lecture, you must know the biographical sketch of the author who has written this chapter 2, Lost Spring, the stories of stolen childhood. Anis Jung was born in Raulkela and spent her childhood and adolescence in Hyderabad. She was born in the year 1964. She received her education in Hyderabad and in the United States of America. She has been an editor and columnist for major newspapers in India and abroad and authored several books. The following is an excerpt from her book titled Lost Spring, Stories of Stolen Childhood. Now, before I come to the explanation of the chapter, I would like to tell you the background of the story so that you can understand the chapter better. The story Lost Spring, written by Anis Jung, revolves around the pitiable condition of poor children who are forced to live in slums and work hard in very dirty conditions. The story is divided into two parts. The first part tells the writer's impressions about the life of poor rag pickers who have migrated from Bangladesh but are now settled in Simapuri area of Delhi. Now, dear students, the first part of this chapter was all about a boy whose name was Sahib Alam. He was engaged in rag picking and his family migrated from Bangladesh and now they are settled in Simapuri, outskirts of Delhi. In the previous video, that means part 1 of chapter 2 Lost Spring, I have already taught you about Sahib Alam, about his family, about the pitiable condition of the poor children who are engaged in rag picking. In the second part, the narrator narrates the miserable life of the bangle makers in the town of Firozabad. Now, second part is the story of a boy whose name is Mukesh. Mukesh family is engaged in making of bangles and they live in the town of Firozabad. The story talks about the miserable life of the two children, that means Sahib Alam and Mukesh, whose spring or childhood is lost in misery and poverty. Now, coming to the explanation of this chapter, part 2nd, I want to drive a car. I want to drive a car is a statement remarked by a boy whose name is Mukesh. Mukesh and his family is engaged in making of bangles in glass industry. They live in Firozabad. But here, Mukesh ambition is different. He insists on being his own master. He wants to be a motor mechanic. He wants to learn to drive a car. Now see this paragraph. Firozabad is famous for its bangles. Every other family in Firozabad is engaged in making bangles. Families have spent generations working around furnaces, welding glass, making bangles for women. None of them know that it is illegal for children like Mukesh to work in the glass furnaces with high temperatures in dingy cells without air and light. They slog their daylight hours often losing the brightness of their eyes. If the law is enforced, it could get Mukesh and 20,000 children out of the hot furnaces. Now Mukesh live in Firozabad, which is famous for glass bangles. The writer wanted to say that every family in the town of Firozabad was involved in the glass bangle industry. The families had been involved in working at furnaces. Now, the difficult word here is furnaces. Furnaces means a closed room or container where heat is produced. Welding glass. Now, welding, the meaning of the welding here is the process of joining metal or glass pieces by heating them. So, the families are engaged, they are in the profession of making bangles. They have been involved in working at furnaces, welding glass, and making bangles for generations. That means the future generations. They made so many bangles that it seemed that they made bangles for all the women of the world. None of them know that it is illegal for children like Mukesh to work in the glass furnaces with high temperatures in dingy cells without air and light. Mukesh family was also involved in the profession of glass making, so they were not aware of this law. They did not know that it was unlawful to force children to work in such glass furnaces. The place where they make bangles were hot, dark closed rooms without air and light. That means without proper ventilation. Where they were forced to work hard during daytime, they often ended up losing their eyesights or losing the power of seeing. They slog their daylight hours, often losing the brightness of their eyes. If the law is enforced, it could get Mukesh and 20,000 children out of the hot furnaces. The writer felt that if law would come into force, it would rescue almost 20,000 children along with Mukesh from these inhuman places. Now, dear students, see this paragraph. They walk down stinking lanes choked with garbage past homes that remain hovels with crumbling walls, wobbly doors, and no windows. They enter a half built shack. One part of it is thatched with dead grass. A frail young woman is cooking evening meal over a firewood stove. She is wife of Mukesh's elder brother and already in charge of 3 men. The father is a poor bangle maker. Despite long years of hard labor, he has failed to renovate a house and send his two sons to school. All he has managed to do is teach them what he knows, the art of making bangles. One day Mukesh requested the writer to visit his house. He was happy to take the writer to his home. They walked down streets which were blocked by full of garbage and gave foul or bad smell. The streets were lined with slums which were unsteady. The walls, that means the crumbling walls, were falling apart. The wobbly doors, that means the doors were moving side to side. There were no windows in the house and were full of families where people lived along with animal. They enter a half-built shack. One part of it is thatched with dead grass. Now Mukesh stopped in front of one such door, hit it hard with his foot and pushed it open. They entered inside a partially or roughly built constructed hut. One corner is covered with dead grass. Now in the house, there was a frail young woman. That means frail meaning is thin or weak. There was a thin or weak young woman cooking the evening meal for the family. That young woman was the wife of Mukesh's elder brother. Although she was not much older than Mukesh, she was a responsible woman and was worthy to get respect from the family as the daughter-in-law, which we call Bahu, of the family. She is taking care of 3 men. Her husband, second one is Mukesh, and the third person is their father. The father of Mukesh was a poor bangle maker who had worked hard all his life. Still, he was not able to either renovate the house or send his sons to school. He had just managed to teach them the skills of making bangles. Now, here, students, there are few difficult words. The first one is stinking. In the first line, the meaning of stinking is bad smell. The second hard word or difficult word is hovels, that means slums. Then comes crumbling walls, which means falling down. Then difficult word is wobbly doors, which means door moving side to side. Thatched hair means covered with dry grass. Frail, frail hair means weak or thin. Now coming to the next slide. Mukesh's grandmother has watched her husband go blind with the dust from polishing the glass of bangles. She says that it is his destiny. They have been born in the caste of bangle makers and have seen nothing but bangles of various colors. Boys and girls sit with fathers and mothers welding pieces of colored glass into circles of bangles. They work in dark hutments next to lines of flames of flickering oil lamps. Their eyes are more adjusted to the dark than to light outside. They often end up losing their eyesight before they become adults. Now see the first line, students. Mukesh's grandmother. Mukesh's grandmother has watched her own husband go blind with the dust from the polishing the glass of bangles. Now Mukesh's grandmother justified her poverty by saying that he was destined to make bangles as it had been their family profession. For this reason, they have to adopt this profession, they have to work hard for their livelihood. She said that their family got this art of bangle making from God, and so they had to carry on the tradition. As they were born in a particular caste which had to follow the profession of bangle making, they were everywhere in the backyard, in the next house, in their yard, and even in the streets of the town. There were bangles of all the colors of the rainbow, like gold, green, blue, pink, purple, etc. Boys and girls sit with fathers and mothers welding pieces of colored glass into circles of bangles. They work in dark hutment next to lines of flames of flickering oil lamps. Their eyes are more adjusted to the dark than to light outside. They often end up losing their eyesight before they become adults. Now, in this, the writer describes the environment where these bangle makers work. They were small, dark huts. The children would sit next to a line of oil lamps whose flames were unsteady, that means moving side to side. They, along with their parents, joined the pieces of colored glass into circles called bangles. As these children spent a lot of time in the dark, their eyes would not adapt to the bright sunlight. Many of them lost their eyesight before gaining adulthood. Now see this paragraph. Savita, a young girl is draped in pink dress, sits alongside an elderly woman. She is soldering pieces of glass. Her hands move mechanically like the tongs of a machine. Perhaps she does not know the sanctity of the bangles she helps make. The old woman beside her had not enjoyed even one full meal in her entire lifetime. Her husband is an old man with flowing beard. He knows nothing except bangles. He has made a house for the family to live in. He has roof over his head. Now in this paragraph, there is, in the very first line, there is a difficult word, that is drab. Drab means colorless. Second hard word meaning is tongs. Tongs is an instrument with two movable arms joined at one hand. The third difficult word is sanctity. That means the state of being holy. Yeah, sacred. Now, Savita, a young girl, is drab in pink dress. There was a young girl by the name Savita. She wore a colorless pink colored dress. Her hands moved like a machine, just like a tongs of a machine, as she is joining pieces of glass to make bangles. Perhaps she does not know the sanctity of the bangles she helps make. The writer wondered if Savita knew that bangles were sacred. She thought that Savita would realize this when she would become a bride. That day she would cover her head with a red colored veil. Veil here means cover with red scarf, as do our mother put on their head when they see the elder ones of the family. Color her hands with henna and wear red colored bangles on her wrist. The old woman beside her had not enjoyed even one full meal in her entire lifetime. Her husband is an old man with flowing beard. He knows nothing except bangles. He has made a house for the family to live in. He has roof over his head. The elderly woman sitting next to Savita also became a bride many years ago. The elderly woman complained that she had not even eaten a share of food. Share, S-E-R. Share is a unit of measuring quantity. The woman wants to say that they are so poor that they cannot eat enough food. The woman's husband has a flowing beard, white flowing beard. He has grown old. He says that he does not know anything other than bangle making. All that he has been able to accomplish is to make a house for his family to live in. Here, the writer wonders that probably the old man, who is the husband of this elderly woman, has achieved something which many other people have not been able to achieve. Coming to the next paragraph. Little has moved with times in Firozabad. Families do not have enough to eat. They do not have money to do anything except carry on the business of making bangles. The young men echo the lament of their elders. They have fallen into the vicious circle of middlemen who trap their fathers and forefathers. They are unwilling to get organized into cooperative. They fear that they will be hauled up by the police, beaten, and dragged to jail for doing something illegal. No one helps them to see things differently. They talk of poverty, greed, and injustice. Now, here, students, the difficult word is lament, which means complaint, and vicious, that means cruel. So, this problem was prevalent in all the homes which carried on the profession of making bangles. They did not know anything else other than bangle making. Even the young men who had entered the traditional profession also had the same complaint. Writer is talking about the young men who are in the clutches of cruel middlemen who had trapped their elders, fathers, and forefathers. They have fallen into the vicious circle of middlemen who trap their fathers and forefathers. They are unwilling to get organized into cooperative. The writer suggests them to form a cooperative to get out of the clutches of middlemen. They replied, if they dared to do something like that, that means to form a cooperative, they would be dragged and beaten up by the police and sent to jail. Their act of forming cooperative would be termed to be unlawful. They fear that they will be hauled up by the police, beaten, and dragged to jail for doing something illegal. No one helps them to see things differently. They talk of poverty, greed, and injustice. The writer felt that as they had no leaders, they could not think of doing things differently. They all were so tired, that means the men and their fathers, they all were tired doing the profession of bangle making. The men complained that it was a continuous process. Their poor condition, lack of common concern for their profession. Now see this paragraph, students. Two distinct worlds are visible. One, families caught in poverty and burdened with the stigma of caste in which they are born. The other, a vicious circle of moneylenders, the middlemen, the policemen, the keepers of law, and politicians. Together, they have imposed the baggage on the child that he cannot put it down. To do anything else would mean to dare, and daring is not part of his growing up. The author is cheered when she senses a flash of it in Mukesh, who wants to be a motor mechanic. Now, here the writer envisioned that there were two separate worlds. One was of such families who were struck in poverty and the pressure of doing the traditional profession according to the caste in which they were born. The other world is a never ending cycle of moneylenders, middlemen, policemen, law keepers, government officials, and politicians. Both of these worlds had forced the young boys to follow the family tradition. The young boys get into the profession and became a part of the cruel cycle even before they realize it. If they did anything else, it meant that they were challenging these two worlds. To do anything else would mean to dare, and daring is not part of their growing up. The author is cheered when she senses a flash of it in Mukesh, who wants to be a motor mechanic. The writer was happy to sense that Mukesh had the spark in him. He wanted to go to a garage and learn the job, but his dreams looks like a mirage amidst the dust of streets that fill his town Firozabad, famous for its bangles. It means that his dream seems that it will be true in future, but actually it will not be so. Now, dear students, let's study about the theme of the story. Anish Jung, the writer, through this story conveys a strong message to put an end to child exploitation and let all children enjoy their childhood days of the spring. The theme of the chapter, that means the theme of the chapter 2, Lost Spring, story of stolen childhood, is the grinding poverty and the traditions which condemn poor children to a life of exploitation. The two stories taken together depict the plight of street children forced into labor early in life and denied the opportunity of schooling. So, say no to child labor. Now, in this slide, I have given you few lines. In these few lines, you have to identify the literary devices. First one is drowned in an air of desolation. Second one, web of poverty. Third, scrounging for gold. Fourth, few aeroplanes fly over Firozabad. Fifth, Sahib Alam, which means the Lord of Universe, is directly in contrast to what Sahib is in reality. In these 5 sentences, you have to find out the literary device used by the writer. Now, in this slide, I have given you few questions. That means 8 questions are there for you. You have to write the answer of this question in homework copy and you have to show to me when the school reopens. Question 1. Who is Mukesh? What is his dream? Question 2. Where is Mukesh house located? What is he proud of? Question 3. How would you regard Mukesh's father's life and achievement? Question 4. Savita is a symbol of innocence and efficiency. You have to comment. Question 5. Why do the bangle makers not organize themselves into a cooperative? Question 6. Mention the hazards of working in the glass bangle industry. Question 7. How, in your opinion, can Mukesh realize his dreams? Question number 8. Why should child labor be eliminated and how? So these are 8 questions, a task for you to write the answer of the following questions. Thank you students for watching and listening this video. One suggestion from my side, from government side also, stay home, save lives. Thank you.